Miranda versus Arizona. The Miranda Rights is a right to silence warning given by police to anyone held in police custody or anyone being accused of a crime prior to being interrogated to protect against self-incrimination.
The Miranda rights simply state you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. Do you understand the rights I have just read to you? With these rights in mind, do you wish to speak to me?
Ernesto Miranda, who was born on March 9, 1941 and died on January 31, 1976, was an 8th grade dropout student. He had criminal records and pronounced sexual fantasies. On March 13, 1963, Ernesto Miranda was accused of raping and kidnapping an exceptional 18-year-old woman.
On March 13, 1963, Ernesto Miranda was arrested and interrogated by police officers in connection with a kidnapping and rape. After interrogation, Ernesto gave a written confession. This confession became evidence in the trial. Police officers failed to advise Miranda of his right to have an attorney present during questioning. He was found guilty and was sentenced to 20 to 30 years to be served consecutively. After appealing to the court, the Supreme Court of Arizona confirmed that Miranda's rights were not violated.
A majority opinion was made in the Supreme Court of Arizona. It was a 5-4 decision in favor of Ernesto Miranda. Supreme Court ruled that Ernesto Miranda was protected by the Fifth Amendment, which simply states, "No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime, unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation."
The prosecution cannot use the accused person's statement received during interrogation unless certain procedures are followed. Ernesto Miranda was tried again without the confession used as evidence, and instead was convicted for 11 years and was paroled in 1972. Ernesto Miranda was stabbed to death in an argument at a bar in 1976. A suspect was arrested, but he used his right to remain silent after being read his Miranda rights. The suspect was released from his charges, and up to this day, no one has been charged for the murder of Ernesto Miranda. The Continental Congress began on September 5, 1774, where delegates from each of the original 13 colonies, besides Georgia, met up to set up the Parliament's coercive acts. John Jay decided to support the revolution. In 1776, John Jay was working as the state's Chief Justice and helped to write the state's constitution. In 1778, he became President of Congress and took on the prominent role of becoming a diplomat. He then traveled to Spain in an attempt to obtain more support for American independence. In 1783, he joined Benjamin Franklin in Paris, where they negotiated an end to the Revolutionary War with the Treaty of Paris. Then Jay became a Foreign Affairs Secretary under the Articles of Confederation. He was frustrated with the limited power of the state, and so he wanted a strong central government and thus improved constitution. He wrote 5 essays that became known as the Federalist Papers. These discussed in favor of the principles of government laid out in the Constitution. He also wrote a pamphlet called An Address to the People of New York. This helped the Constitution attain ratification in New York.
In 1789, George Washington appointed him as the Supreme Court's first Chief Justice until 1795. During this time, Treaty of Amity, commerce and navigation between His Britannic Majesty and the United States of America, also known as Jay's Treaty, was negotiated and signed on November 19, 1794. It addressed controversial issues such as exports, seizures, and occupation between Great Britain and the United States. It also helped prevent a war between the United States and Great Britain.
After his return to the U.S., he had been elected governor of New York in 1795. He then resigned his seat on Supreme Court and took office. John Jay retired in 1801 in Bedford, New York. Then he died on May 17, 1829, at the age of 83.